Hey everybody, it's Rob here. Welcome to my Season 6 tier list with the best builds. We have the Spiritborn in the game now, and let's see where it ranks in all this class tier list. I have a full Excel sheet and spreadsheet that I'm going to link below that you can follow alongside this video. But a quick disclaimer before we get started. We did not play the final version of the patch. We played a version before that. So all here is my opinion and my best guess together with you guys, the community, of what the strongest builds are. So let's get started. I have this spreadsheet right here that shows you basically all the builds ranked into basically if they can do high pit clears or not, and also pretty much every A tier build is T4 viable. Like the Torment or World tier Torment 4 is basically the way the world tiers are changed to, and every build can strive for this, but it is completely optional. Like, you don't have to do T4 to get the best items or to farm the best gear. You can do all this in T1. So play whatever you like and don't let anyone tell you what you should play. I will do my best to update this tier list as the season progresses and the meta shifts. So we're not going to talk about every build. You can see a lot of them here. I also don't have like every build listed, like only the top options. And we're basically going to go over class by class and then like go into the top tiers where we will basically go into a lot more detail. I've played the Vessel of Hatred expansion for about 100 hours. I had like an early review access and I got to play a lot of these builds, and I also talked to a lot of the top players. So coming in at number 5 here, guys, is the Druid. So Druid had a pretty cool build, which was the Raw Druid. It has been heavily nerfed. And the best build of Druid is still the AK-47 Landslide Druid. The only thing that has been really changed is that Stormslide and Nature's Fury are not really proccing the Earthbreaker ring anymore. So you're most likely going back, you know, to like a pure version where you're basically focused around your main landslides to deal most of your damage and not like proc it via the Stormslide and via the Earthbreaker ring. So this build is still going to be very strong in the season, but in general Druids are really struggling in terms of leveling, and they are very much struggling, as you can see by this footage here, in terms of speed, right? So D is for Druid. Like, it has one good A tier build, and then I'm not even sure like what the builds that come after it are really gonna be. Like, I think you want to be playing like Companion maybe for leveling, and then you want to transition pretty much into this Landslide DPS build. But again, the Stormslide mechanics and the Earthbreaker are getting a big chunk down, and the Raw Druid is dead on arrival with the Bold Chieftain nerf that is present in the patch notes, where they basically changed the way that the cooldown works. It's not a flat cooldown, but it is a percentage-based cooldown, which is basically has a cap of 75, especially when combining it with Harlequin's Crest. So this also brings us to our next class on the tier list, which is the Barbarian. So this is with a heavy heart. Barbarian is also affected heavily by the Bold Chieftain and nerf, and Barbarian was already a very weak class coming into this season. So core skills on Barbarian are still an absolute joke at the moment. The two top Barbarian builds are Earthquake Barb, which is still pretty nice. You may have seen my AFK like Earthquake Barb clears actually going pretty good. And then we have more buffs to Mighty Throw. So they buffed the Mighty Throw. This is the new skill. They buffed it by about 33%. And these are pretty much the top contenders, but they are nowhere near the top. They're still pretty decent though. You can see here, like, this is basically like throwing Q-tip at the enemies. You have a lot of overpower hits. See, hitting for hundreds of millions, and they also changed the double hit temper of Mighty Throw to do double damage now. So it's gonna be hitting for maybe somewhere around 1 billion damage, and it's pretty decent still, but again, nowhere near any of the top tier. And you can see, like, you can still be pretty squishy here, like you can still die and everything. And Pit 100 is gonna be much more of a challenge. So this was a PTR clear, it wasn't played on the final patches. So it's still going to be decent, but not that crazy. And then one thing that also changed on the Earthquake Barb, you may have seen my AFK Barb. You can't go fully AFK no more, because they did change the Lith rune. You see, this was happening before. But now the Lith rune, you basically have to be in active combat for it to trigger. However, this Earthquake stuff, I think, is still going to be a decent build for the Barbarian, and I'm really hoping that they are looking and reevaluating some stuff on the Barb, because they keep buffing Upheaval, they keep buffing Hoda, But these builds are all pretty much in the bad tier at the moment. And the top builds here have a very easy time, like clearing 100 plus. And I think the top Barbarian builds will struggle to even, you know, break T100 after the main stat nerf and after the pit has basically been buffed significantly. So Barbarian with a heavy heart is pretty much last place together with the Druid. You could also see it on last place. I have them like about equal. But I think since Druid only has one A tier build, while Barbarian has 2 of them, I think that the Druid is still slightly worse. And Barbarian is still very bad at leveling. They have nerfed some of our favorite builds here. You can see the Whirlwind Barb has received a massive nerf where you basically can't proc your Turiel's Might anymore properly. If you spam Whirlwind, you can't proc the Aspects and the Tornadoes, the Twisters, the Dust Devils anymore if you're spamming. So all this has been nerfed. And we don't even know exactly if the Fist of Fate and Ramaladi bug have been fixed. But even if they have been fixed with the Turiels and the Aspect spam nerf, it's looking very bad for the Whirlwind buff. If you in fact want to play Whirlwind, I suggest you playing the new Dance of Night Victimized Rogue. We'll talk about this a bit later, but that's also a very strong build. And Thorns Barb had many bugs on the PTR and now is also only around in B tier because it basically is not going to put out enough damage. They nerfed the Barb Carapace plus Needle Flare interaction, and they also nerfed, you may have seen it obviously, the infinite Thorns damage. We'll have to see, like, I mean, there might still be some bugs with it, right? But yeah, I don't think we're gonna be hitting for these crazy numbers anymore. Like, this was the PTR, build was completely broken, and yeah, this, as far as I know, has been fixed. Obviously, I couldn't test it because it requires you to triple masterwork certain items. I didn't do this in the 100 hours that I got to play. And I mainly focused on the Spiritborn. But yeah, so Barbarian is not looking all too great. However, Mighty Throw and Earthquake Barb are still going to be decent. Next, coming in, third to last, is the Necromancer. And there's actually some good news for the Necromancer. For me, the Necromancer is the only other S tier build next to the Spiritborn. And this is basically coming, or is basically revolved around the Bone Spirit, which has basically been dominating the Necromancer meta for I think the better part of 3 seasons now. And Bone Spirit keeps getting more buffs and changes. And it's no exception now. You can play a Blood Bone Spirit build. Again, all the planners and links are going to be in the description in the sheet. So this is a very strong build, and you basically have your Blood Wave here. Spam your Bone Spirit and trigger it all the time, hitting for billions and billions of damage. And from this footage, of course, the Warcry and the Yom Rune are going to be nerfed a bit. But overall, this Necro is, I think, the only other contender next to Spiritborn for the top. Again, this is push build. This is not a good speed farming build, but it's going to be very good for high endgame pushing and also Uber boss or Tormented boss killing. So Necromancer is actually looking pretty good. And then on top of this, they have also been buffing the Necromancer minions. They have changed the various key passives in the patch notes, where the minions are actually getting a multiplicative damage increase now from your key passive. And just in general, we have a lot of buffs revolving around minions. Here you see Carlin Addict here has been significantly buffed, actually, giving you 3% X multiplicative now for all the minions. And minion Necromancers are going to have a good time. The build's going to come back. I think it's not quite going to be A tier. I have it in B tier for now, but I'm cautiously optimistic that the minion Necro might also jump into A tier. And then obviously the Bone Spirit wave is, I think, S tier, competing as the only class, I think, with the Spiritborn. But we'll see about that, like, as the game comes out and as we see and get to the final patch notes. Next on my list here, I have the Sorcerer. So you may have seen that the best Sorcerer build, which is Lightning Spear, has received some pretty significant nerfs in the recent patch. However, I think the build was so strong that it actually still gonna be a viable option to play with. So if you see here, I need to go all the way to the top. Lightning Spear is basically now capped to 12 Lightning Spears. They did fix Splintering Energy and its scaling. They did nerf the cooldown reduction from Fractured Winterglass. They did nerf the Lightning Spear double cast on top of all this, tempering. So there is a significant amount of nerfs to this class. However, this build was so strong, and I have some footage here from Mekuna that is basically still blasting pretty well in the high pits. And also there is some other builds that are still going to be very strong. This is footage here from Roxy, where she's basically doing a lucky hit based build, hitting for billions of damage and also do pit 100 even after some of the nerfs here. So it depends a little bit on where Aethelwrath and Frostburn will land. If they remain untouched with the lucky hit, they're gonna be dominating the Sorc meta. And you can see here, this is like the nerfed Lightning Spear Sorcerer. Again, the final nerf wasn't in here, the cap of the spears. But you can see here Mekuna speedrunning 100 in the early access version. And it's going to be a bit weaker on the live, but not by all too crazy much. So I'm still thinking that this build is going to do well in the 90s, and I think in Ultra Endgame, even push again into 100. You're just going to play like a different version that is more focused on Frozen Orbs, and the boss kill is still going to be a big issue on the Sorc. That's why obviously it's not S tier anymore. It used to be the S tier build, but it's certainly getting bumped down. But I think still Lightning Spear Sorc, especially for farming, and especially if you're like a more casual player, it's going to be harder now than before because it's not that free with your cooldown reduction. With the Winterglass nerfs, you actually have to try and you know, get other solutions to reduce your cooldowns, or like play with a bit higher cooldown or do more manual casts. But I still think in the end the Lightning Spear Sorcerer is still going to remain a very viable build. Maybe not the top build. Maybe that thing is going to be taken by this lucky hit based build. But yeah, very nice. And then there's other Sorc builds like Blizzard, Frozen Orb that make it like into B tier. And then like most of the other builds here, Fireball, are not going to be that great. Another thing that is worth mentioning, the Firebolt Shatter Sorc is always a force to be reckoned with. It depends on the final Shatter. You might remember this passive, basically this key passive like Shatter, doing like a bunch of AoE damage for trillions of damage. In fact, right now, the Shatter Sorc is holding the highest pit clear ever on 167. And this is with the Shatter like penta dipping multipliers bug. And we'll see if they finally fix this, or if this is still going to remain in the game. Because if it's going to remain, at least to some degree in the game, then Shatter Fireball Bolt will still dominate and probably move into S tier. However, as far as I've heard, the Shatter bug has been adjusted. We'll have to see if it's been fully adjusted, but even without the Shatter bug, it's still going to be a B tier build because Firebolt as a generator still has a lot of multipliers and make it pretty strong. But yeah, it definitely has potential to jump top of S tier, even stronger than Spiritborn, if the Shatter is not fixed. We'll see. One can only hope that some of these bugs are fixed after, like, you know, certain amount of time. And yeah, then coming in, actually number 2 is the Rogue. And I have Sorc and Rogue kind of around the same power level in the final rating. You could say Sorc is number 2 after Spiritborn. You could say Rogue is number 2. It's like very close to one another, I think. The Rogue used to be one of the best classes coming out of Season 5. There's been some nerfs to it. They have added an internal cooldown to Endarials. They have nerfed Victimize. And they have nerfed some stuff on the Dance of Knives with the spamming of it. Like if you just spam it, just similar to the Whirlwind Barb of Tyrell's Smite and other resources, has been fixed. However, the Rogue had so many top builds, and I think it still has one of the most fun and cool to play builds that is way better than any of the Whirlwind Barbarian stuff. And this is the Spin to Win Dance of Knife Rogue. And we have a video here from Mippy actually blasting, I'm going to link this as well in the sheet, actually blasting down on this early access version, already like an 85 in just a few minutes, and his Victimize is still hitting for billions of damage. So it is going to still be a very strong build, not as strong as you've seen on PTI where it literally was speed farming hundreds, but I think like speed farming 80s is still possible with this build. And with that, I think it's one of the most top builds of the entire season that is also a lot of fun to play. There's some other good options here on the Rogue as well. You still have Death Trap. Twisting Blades still looks pretty good. Like there's like a pretty crazy poison build here that has basically been dominating, especially on single target. So if you like boss killing, I think this build is still going to be tremendously successful for you. You can just see here, like he melts this boss in just a few seconds here. Look. So once you stagger, like on Rogue, like you deal a tremendous amount of damage. And look at this here. For example, obviously this was like a demon and there was a bug with the demons. However, I think the build is still very strong. You can also play Barrage Victimize. It's still decent. However, you know you have this victimized nerf, so it is getting a little weaker on that side of things. But overall, I think a Rogue, maybe together with the Sorcerer, solid rank 2. I would even put the Rogue slightly ahead, but we'll see what's going to happen in the final patch. And then, guys, I think very much uncontested on rank 1 is the new class that is coming in the expansion here, the Spiritborn. I myself have played around 100 hours of Spiritborn in the end game, and the class is fantastic. It's probably the most well-designed classes in the game right now, and it also makes other classes kind of look like a joke in some regards, because it just has such good synergy, and the skill tree is like very well thought out. There's a bunch of combination possibilities and a bunch of viable options, and I've tried the top builds and it was hitting for tens of billions of damage and was able to completely like one-shot everything on T4 and also crush like all the bosses and like pit up to 115 I've seen from Ace. So the class is very, very strong, and it feels very smooth and fun to play. And the community also agrees with it. I have a poll here that I'm going to link below, and it looks like, at least in my community, let me F5 this. Not sure how many votes we have right now, but we have 7,000 votes, and 3/4 of every player here is playing or is looking to play, at least in my community, might be a bit biased, Spiritborn. While there's only 6% on Sorc, 7% on Rogue, 6% on Barb, and 3% on Necromancer, 3% on Druid. It is brutal. So I'm expecting a lot of the people to play Spiritborn, and the class is just that strong. It truly is. I can show you here some of the top builds I've been rocking, and this, I believe this is basically, you could say this is the Lightning Spear Sorcerer build of Season 6. This is basically similar to the Javazon in Diablo 2. This is like a Spiritborn Eagle Quill Volley build that combines it with Gorilla and also with Jaguar. And to my knowledge, or like at least from what I've seen, and in my opinion, this is the best build for pretty much everything in the game. Like, you can farm with it, you can level with it. I'm gonna have a leveling guide coming out here in a few hours as well for the Spiritborn. Like, you can basically play Quill Volley Jaguar like from the very beginning of the game all the way to the very, very end game. And it's a solid build. You can, it's a very strong build. Like, you can do bosses, you can do single target, you can do AoE. This is me here clearing a pit 105. And this is already like a very, very hard pit here that many classes, top build, won't even reach. And we are speed farming it here on the Spiritborn. I have a full build guide that I'm going to link below, explaining this build in detail. And it's very strong. Like, for 99% of you out there, if you want to start Spiritborn, I recommend you starting with this build. There is a second, a pretty decent contender from all of this. So this is the Eagle build. There is a second pretty decent contender, which is Touch of Death. This is probably the highest DPS in all of Vessel of Hatred. You guys can see me here on the poison. This is revolving around Poison Touch of Death. And it's a more like an end game build. Like, it requires better gear. You need to have good masterworking, but it basically one-shots everything that the game can throw at you, at least in Torment 4, and only in pit, high pit tiers. At some point it's gonna get stopped, but you see here, like, this build is actually hitting for up to 30 billion damage. And this is also the highest pit push build on the Spiritborn, I think. The Eagle build is the best overall for farming, because this poison build that we're looking at here, which is the second S tier build, is poison, and it's very like small AoE, and it doesn't have the quality of life that the Quill Volley Eagle build has. You'll see it when you play it. I recommend, you can level with this. Yes, I'm also having a leveling build for this poison, but I recommend you playing with Eagle Quill Volley. You can play it all the way through, and only at the very end game, if you like, you can try this poison build. It's a ton of fun as well, and the Touch of Death is an amazing skill that hits as hard as Hoda Barb used to do back in the days before they giga nerfed it. So these are my two top picks for Spiritborn. There's other cool builds for Spiritborn. Making it into A tier, you can play a Thorns build. There was some bugs with it, maybe they'll fix that. And it's going to be a very strong build revolving around Rock Spitter. You can play Stinger instead of Touch of Death. It costs a little less resources and is a core skill right from the beginning that you can spam. So that's also very strong. You can play a payback, like a big one-shot build that's also going to hit for billions. And even other builds, like you can play like a Rake build, you can play like Spiritborn basic build. There's like a ton of different options here. Let me show you here like some of, for example, like here you can play Rake. Like I have footage of all of them pretty much. It wasn't as strong, but it's like a cool build that has big AoE, not that big damage. But it basically is like a fire slashing. I would even say it's like a slash, like a sword attack or something. And it looks a ton of fun. Has big AoE and also like can blast like 90s very easily. I wasn't optimized at all here, so you can probably double or even triple this damage. I'm pretty sure this build is gonna speed farm 100 once you have it like fully built out. So there's a ton of cool builds on the Spiritborn. The class has so much, you know, versatility. There's so many different setups that you can play and have a lot of fun with. So I highly encourage you to play the class. And I mean, I get it while there's 70-80% of people liking to play Spiritborn. However, I think class balance right now is an issue. I'm not saying they should nerf Spiritborn, right? Because Spiritborn is about 10 times stronger than most other builds. But they basically keep nerfing existing builds, such as, you know, Lightning Spear Sorc, such as the Hoda Barb, such as the Ball Lightning Sorc, the Landslide Druid, the Spin to Win Rogue, like all these builds that were even like anywhere close Spiritborn seem to have been nerfed significantly, up to the point where the power gap of those classes, Spiritborn to every other class, is crazy big. And I agree, like, you know, new expansion is coming out, new class is coming out. Yes, everybody wants it to feel powerful. They love this word, they want it to feel punchy, you know. And I get it, like the new class should be powerful. But should it really be, at least from like early looking at it, like 5 times stronger than every other class? I don't think that's really that healthy for the game. I mean, maybe it's okay if it's like 50% stronger. But it is a lot stronger right now. And I think they went very heavy with some of the nerfs. So I would have loved for them to like not nerf, you know, certain other meta builds that much. But yeah, the season looks to be very, very dominated by the Spiritborn. It's gonna be it's gonna be fun. But I think the class balance is an issue that has to be looked at going forward, because yeah, Spiritborn is just flying very high at the moment. We'll see. We haven't seen exactly the final patch notes. I don't want to jinx it, but we'll see like what's gonna happen, you know. And I think they also said, the Diablo team, that they want to be like taking a close look at the game and like be very quickly with like bug fixes and some of these kind of things. Like Spiritborn has been tested quite a bit now, but I still think there might be some hidden crazy builds or some bugged interactions. I hope that they can like fix very fast if they come to light. But overall, the class is a ton of fun, guys. Like, I'm definitely starting on Spiritborn, and 70% of you apparently are doing so too. I hope you enjoyed the tier list. Again, everything is linked in the description. Take it all with a grain of salt, guys. It's just my opinion. Things will change. But my final class ranking again would be Spiritborn auf die 1, Spiritborn number 1, Rogue number 2, Sorcerer number 3, Necro number 4, Barbarian and Druid on last place, sadly, number 5 and 6. That is my tier list. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Season starts soon. Log in. Hope you enjoy. I'll see you soon. GG. Let's go. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.